we don't have to do that.
And
Well, let's do the other ones first.
Yeah.
I was gonna,
Guiding keys.
just before your message, I was gonna do a couple not one paragraph. I think it would fit for that second.
It's like whatever, I don't know.
Liability, it'll be a way times. That's part of it.
If this is on, then all you have to do is turn that on.
Okay.
But that's just turned itself off.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Everything's on? Good.
Yeah.
Democracy in Ukraine was supported by our own Senator Roger Wicker, who is the Senate Armed Services Chair.
Yeah. Voted for that. I won't say that. Yeah. Stood up. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
He made a statement supporting Ukraine's membership in NATO and a return to Ukraine's borders before the Russian incursions. You may want to thank him.
Okay. Yeah.
And then here is the whole statement that we could leave out.
Okay.
So if you say, if you want more information, I can write that if you want.
I'll just make a reminder
Right.
to note handouts.
Yes.
Excellent.
And this is Heather Cox Richardson's words.
Okay.
So we didn't actually, we're just taking Heather Cox Richardson.
And a question for you, Mark. Sharon asked if we could move the CEP meeting to that Sunday. Which would be next week in February, rather than the first. And that way Sarah can attend if she wants to.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. I think that would be a good idea. Because things are moving so fast. And when Marty sent out that information before I even saw it. Although it's very important, it's very complicated, and it's ongoing, and there's no way we can easily give it to the congregation.
Right. Yeah, it's
Right.
That's part of the crazy, yeah.
That's right, but this is timely, it's supportive
Yeah,
of
thank you.
Roger Ricker.
Yeah. And it's really supportive.
And it's one of the first things that anybody is doing to hold the Trump administration accountable. One of them.
So, CAP meeting next week.
Next week, okay, very good.
Good morning, everyone. Our gathering hymn this morning is number 389, Gathered Here, and I believe we'll do it as a round, and so Elaine and Dan will lead us through this, and it's going to be great. It is, I know it is.
Say it
It's gonna be great.
Okay, so Tycho's going to play it through once on the piano, and then we're all going to sing it together, and then we're going to try to break it into a two-part round. So Elaine will take this side and start you at number one, and then, is that Chris in the back? Yeah, come up here and help me, Chris. And then when we get to, who gets to number two, this side will come in at number one. We'll sing it through 3 additional times as a round. So we'll sing 4 times all together, once together, and then 3 times as the round. Good luck, let's go.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Oxford. I'm Gail Stratton, and I'm your worship associate today. Whether you're a longtime member or a first-time visitor, we welcome you. Come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. You are welcome here no matter your age, your size, the color of your hair or skin or eyes. It does not matter if you are right-handed or left-handed, if you are a visual learner or an auditory learner. It does not matter what languages you speak or where you call home. You are welcome here. We're going to start with several announcements, and I'd like to invite Rhondalyn forward for the first announcement about Behind the Big House, if we can.
You know, actually, I'm going to yield to somebody who knows more that I didn't know that was coming.
Okay.
So, Dr. Jody Skipper, would you like to tell the congregation a little bit about the upcoming Behind the Big House? What is this, the 10th or the 11th? Oh, it's the 11th. Oh.
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome. Yeah.
I'm Jody Skipper, a friend of Rhondalyn's. I'm also on the faculty at the University of Mississippi, and we've been working with several private homeowners in Holly Springs, Mississippi, to interpret slavery through slave dwellings on site. And it's free and open to the public. We largely target K-12 school groups, so we have several hundred young people come through to learn about the lives of enslaved people. And we invite you to do that as well from April 3rd through 5th. Essentially from 10 to 5, but sometimes our hours can get a bit flexible. But again, it's free to all. Anyone can bring anyone they want to bring. Anyone can come. Bring young folks, bring elder folks. We welcome everybody there.
Thank you. Great. Sounds like I know it's an excellent program. A couple of other announcements. Our Community Action Program, which is our community outreach and social justice program, is going to start meeting on the 4th Sunday of every month, and that's to allow the opportunity for our minister, Sarah Osborne, Reverend Sarah Osborne, to be part of that. So there will be a meeting at 9:15 next Sunday at right here in one of the back rooms for the Community Action Program. It's sometimes called the CAP program. Somebody was talking about it. I thought, were they saying cat? We have a cat program? No, it's a CAP program. And I have a couple of announcements that are from Sue Fino. The first one is calling our elected senators and representatives is part of a nationwide movement, and it's also part of being active in democracy. And democracy is certainly one of our values. Concerned citizens are calling legislatures and holding demonstrations daily to let them know when they support our values and also when our values are being compromised. We have a handout here that I encourage you to take afterwards that gives you an opportunity to make such a call. And it's related to this. Democracy in Ukraine was supported by our own Senator Roger Wicker, who is the Senate Armed Service Chair. I'll refrain from any snarky comments. He supported that. He made a statement supporting Ukraine's membership in NATO and a return to Ukraine's borders before the Russian incursion. It's important to call representatives when they are not doing what we want, but it's also really good to call them when they do something that we want. So that's a good thing to do. February is new member month. If you are interested in becoming a member of UUCO, see our membership chair, Carmen Martin, who's sitting in the back. So let her know, and she'll let you know what's involved. Our Share the Plate, I'll say a little bit more about it later, but our Share the Plate this month is going to a program called Our Whole Lives. It's sometimes called the OWL, O-W-L program. OWL is an age-appropriate secular curriculum designed to share honest, accurate information about gender and sexuality. It is a great program, and there's not a lot of places in Mississippi where you get accurate, age-appropriate information about sexuality or gender identity. One last note is grief, gratitude, and growth are joys and concerns you can put in the offering plate as it goes around, or anything that you want to have shared from the pulpit. Any other announcements that should be mentioned? Okay, excellent. So, it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. She'll be speaking a little bit later during the service. Come on in, please. Just come be comfortable. Our house is your house. Rhondalyn Peairs is a native Oxonian committed to the progress of the LOU community and the larger Hill Country region. She serves her local congregation, Oxford First Methodist Church, which is right down the road, as a lay leader, administrative council chair, trustee, and church historian. As a civically engaged citizen and professional, she has served as a public school teacher, cultural entrepreneur, public historian, election worker, and even census taker. In 2018, she started Historich, a tourism and education services company. The company seeks to connect communities and visitors alike with the rich and complex history of North Mississippi through experiential learning opportunities. She helps to complexify the history that too often seems one very, very, very shallow. So that's a really great thing that she does. Patrons and visitors receive a more inclusive narrative of Mississippi history that privileges marginalized stories of those who have been erased from the traditional Southern narrative. So welcome, Rhondalyn. So glad you're here, and we look forward to what you will share a little bit later. Our call to community is from Jan Richardson. It's called Practicing Inclusion. Said that word out loud, we might get in trouble. You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you to enter entirely. You began to breathe again. You learned to sing. But the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone. It will not let you linger, at least for too long. This blessing will ask you to leave, not because it is tired of you, but because it desires for you or us to become the sanctuary that you or we have found. With the spirit of oneness, let's take a moment to offer a gesture of holy hospitality. You're invited to greet your neighbor, either to the right or left, or someone that you don't know. If you choose to not participate, that's fine as a practice of consent. If you just want to sit quietly, just put your hand over your heart, and that will be a symbol that you really don't want to be shaking hands or hugging people at this time. So that's fine. So now let's take a moment. Please turn to your neighbor or someone that you don't know and say hello and greet your neighbor. Thank you. Now, with the healing love of community sparking among us, let us light the sacred symbol of our faith, our flaming chalice. And Chad will light the chalice for us, as I've got words from Reverend Scott Taylor. The names of love. We light this chalice in the many names of love. The love of family that brings us into being, allows us to bloom, and then sends us on our way with courage, knowing we can return no matter what. The love of partnered hearts that teach us to trust and help us to know that who we are does not end at the barrier of our own skin. The love of friends who help us to feel seen and sing out our song back to us when we cannot hear it with our own ears. The love of community that bathes us in belonging and calls us to see the needs of others as our own. And the greatest love, the love that will not let us go, even in our fear, even in our failure, even when we are lonely or feel lost. Love invites us home. If we listen, it is doing so even today. Our next song is Guide My Feet, number 348 in the gray hymnal. Is it one you want to play through? Yeah, so Taika will play it through in its entirety, and Dan will lead us.
God
Our story this morning is called The Truth Crushed Down, and it was written by Reverend Chris Bice, who was formerly the minister at the UU minister in Knoxville. Once upon a time, there was a very greedy king who had lots and lots of gold. But he wanted even more gold, so he decided he'd order his army to go attack the neighboring kingdom and steal all of their gold. The king called all of his soldiers into his courtyard, told them his plan. Soldiers agreed to obey his orders. They drew their swords, lifted their shield, and off they went into battle. But the soldiers were not gone long from the castle before they began returning to the courtyard. Not one of the soldiers was carrying its sword or shield. "What happened?" screamed the king. "I told you to go fight a battle." "We were on our way, sire," said one man, "when we came across an apple tree, and that tree spoke to us out loud. It said, 'All men are brothers, all women are sisters, all people are siblings, and all the people of the earth are one family. Be wise and lay down your swords and shields and study war no more.' It seemed to us like the tree made sense. And so that's what we did." The king, of course, was furious. He vowed to get rid of the tree that had ruined his plans. He waited until midnight, and then he crept out of the castle, walking across the field until he came upon the apple tree. The king took out his axe and chopped down the tree, and he was still so mad that he stomped on the fallen tree till it was crushed down into the earth. Then the king walked back to his castle with a big smile on his face. The next day, the king called his soldiers back into the courtyard. He gave them new swords and new shields and told them to obey his orders and go attack the neighboring kingdom. The soldiers were afraid of the king, so they did what they were told. But the soldiers had not gone long before they started returning without their swords and shields. This made the king furious. "I told you to fight a battle," he screamed. "We were on our way," said the soldiers, "but we came to a spot where we saw the apple tree yesterday, and you wouldn't believe it, but there were 20 trees there today." And they were saying all the same thing. "All men are brothers, all women are sisters, and all people are siblings. All the people of the earth are one family. Be wise and lay down your swords and shields and study war no more." Now, as a biologist, I need to say there's a couple ways that this can happen. Lots of trees put up shoots very quickly from their roots. Lots of trees will have their seeds on their branches, and if you cut them down, it just gets the seeds into the ground quicker. So this is not an impossible story. The king didn't want to hear the rest. He knew that those trees were saying. He ran out of the castle, and there he saw the forest of trees stretching out as far as he could see. The king began to cry and scream because he knew there was no way he could chop down so many trees. "Can it be," he screamed, "that a powerful king like myself can be stopped by a few trees?" "Are you asking me?" came a voice from behind him. Turning around, the king saw an old man leaning against the castle walls. His hair and beard were long and gray, and his clothes were well worn. "Well," said the king after a moment, "do you have an answer? So if so, please tell me." "Well," said the old man, and then he paused for a moment. "Seems to me you are a very powerful king." "Yes, I am," agreed the king. "Yes. And since you're so powerful, you can take any tree that offends you and chop it into little pieces and crush it into the ground." "You are quite right," said the king. "Yes. But," said the beggar, "the apple tree spoke the truth. All people are siblings. All men are brothers, and all women are sisters, and all the people of the earth are one family. You may be a powerful king, but there is no king on earth more powerful than the truth. For truth, crushed to the earth, will rise again." And that is our story for today. This is the season of our pledge campaign, and our elected leaders are working hard thinking about the budget and what the needs are of the community in the next year. And a piece of that is knowing how much money they will have to work with. And so this is part of our pledge campaign. And during this time when the pledge campaign is going on, we ask different members to come forward and share why they are part of this community. So at this point, I'd like to ask one of our newest members, Chad Wisnot, to come forward and speak. Thank you.
wrong side of the microphone. So, just a little backstory here. In my early 20s, I was teaching Sunday school in a Southern Baptist church. I'll spare you the details of my deconstruction and the leaving of that church, but suffice it to say I was done with organized religion. But I found that when you walk away from an institution like that that's kind of framed your whole life up to that point, you lose something really important to the human experience, and that is community. So fast forward to last year, I'm 41 now, and I still haven't really found that community that I had built in when I was younger. So I gave myself a mission. I was down to a few close friends, many of whom lived hours away. Political tensions had turned into moral arguments and strained relationships, even with close friends and family. So my mission was this, to find a community, and not just social interaction, but a group of people who were progressive, accepting, and open-minded. Even though it seemed like an impossible mission in North Mississippi, I kept digging. So through that digging, I found out about Universal Unitarianism. My immediate thought was that probably doesn't exist here, but much to my surprise, it did. I was very excited. For the first time in 20 or so years, I kind of identified a group that seemed to share my values. So I'm really bad at explaining things when I'm excited about it. So when I came to Arlissa with this news, she was 100% convinced I was about to join a cult. But we kept researching, we watched on Zoom for a couple of Sundays, and we finally came in person to see what it was all about. We realized pretty quickly that, yeah, these are our people. So I genuinely look forward to coming here every chance I get, and even though it's only been a short time, I already feel at home here, and I'm proud to be a part of this congregation. There's no pretense here. You can feel the peace, love, and acceptance when you walk in the door. I've seen firsthand that UUCO practices what it preaches. We help each other in our community to the best of our abilities. We seek understanding in a world that seems to have gone crazy, and we fight for peace even though the odds seem stacked against us. But through all that, we are stronger together, and that's what UUCO means to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. So glad you found this. So glad you're here. Thank you. This religious community exists by its mission as a fire exists by burning. But a fire cannot burn without fuel. And it is the time, the energy and imagination, the vision, the creativity, the compassion, the love, and the financial support of members and friends of this community that fuels our mission of liberal religious community in this place and this time. Your support, the free and generous support of each and every member and friend of the community, is what fuels us and its mission. Without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn as brightly. We need to be a beacon in a world threatened by division and hate. Our offering collected this morning is split, half going to the monthly Share the Plate designee, half going to support the mission of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Oxford. As I said earlier, the Share the Plate recipient is Our Whole Lives, also known as OWL. It's a comprehensive lifespan sexuality education that provides accurate, developmentally appropriate information about a range of topics. The whole of it offers classes and each different age group. I think we're going to start with just one age group as we get going, but it could be a great thing to bring to this community. Honest, accurate information about sexuality changes lives. It empowers people. It dismantles stereotypes and assumptions, builds self-acceptance and self-esteem, fosters healthy relationships, improves decision-making, and has the potential to save lives. As the Share the Plate recipient, the funds for OWL will be used to send selected folks from our congregation to a facilitator training this next month in Memphis and to establish a program here in Oxford. Also, please remember to drop any notes of grief, gratitude, and growth, the joys and concerns, in the offering basket as it goes around. Our morning offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you, Tycho, for all that you bring. Let us now into our ritual to share what is on our hearts and lay it at the altar of community and spirit. We will use a pebble dropped into a bowl of water to symbolize the rippling effects that events in our lives have upon the larger community. We will now share the grief, gratitude, and moments of growth that have touched our lives since we were last together. Thank you. Our first pebble is one of gratitude for visitors and friends. We offer a very warm welcome to you, and so happy that you are here today. Our second pebble is one of grief for people across this globe, so many places who are suffering due to war, violence, disasters, and tyranny. Our third pebble is for all who are living in fear in this country. That one wrong turn, the one not realizing your brake light is out can end in a traffic stop that results with you being sent away, usually on a military transport plane. So it's. We'll now share some of our written joys and concerns. This first one is from James. For the trans community, in the wake of the grisly crime that was committed in New York City, on top of all of the persecutions that are happening now. Thank you. Mary Keha, pray that people who represent us in the federal government may grow a heart for all those who are helped by our U.S. dollars across the world, from our employees to those that benefit in other countries who have infectious diseases, so many ways. We have a note from Becky Kneiper. Please keep Lee in your prayers as he is in the hospital right now, and hope that he will be out soon. And I'd like to finish with a gratitude, and that is our Unitarian Universalist Association has signed on to be part of a lawsuit that is challenging the executive order that stop protections of places of worship, schools, and hospitals. So that is being challenged in the court, and is one of the ways resistance is happening to this mire of legal work. And our last is for all the unspoken joys and concerns, all that we are holding in our heart, knowing that with the rippling of the water, the love that we have goes out and is larger than any of us. Thank you. Our next song is a meditation hymn, and it's in the teal hymnal. For this, please remain seated. And it's number 1002, Comfort Me. 1002 in the teal hymnal. And Tycho will play it through once. I would like to offer now a reading from Martin Luther King's last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? In all of his writings, I have been amazed by his ability to think in crazy times. In the 1960s, people didn't know how things were going to work out. Organizations were being formed. It was a very complex time. And in all of that, including having bomb threats in his house burned, including many, many threats, he found his voice. He found his voice, both in speaking and in writing. So this is a short clip from his last book, Chaos or Community. One of the great liabilities of history is that all too many people fail to remain awake through great periods of social change. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and the fraternities of indifference who are notorious for sleeping through the revolution. But today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant and face the challenge of change. The large house in which we live demands that we transform this worldwide neighborhood into a worldwide brotherhood. Together we must learn to live as brothers, or together we'll be forced to perish as fools. Every person lives in two realms, the internal and the external. The internal is that realm of spiritual ends expressed in art, literature, morals, and religion. The external is that complex of devices, techniques, mechanisms, or instrumentalities by means of which we live. Our problem today is that we've allowed the internal to become lost to the external. We have allowed the means by which we live to outdistance the ends for which we live for. So much of modern life can be summarized as that aggressive phrase of Thoreau, improved means to an unimproved end. This is the serious predicament, the deep and haunting problem confronting modern man. Enlarged material powers spell enlarged peril if there is not a proportionate growth of the soul. When the external of man's nature subjugates the internal, dark clouds start to form. Western civilization is particularly vulnerable at this moment, for our material abundance has brought us neither peace of mind nor serenity of spirit. An Asian writer has portrayed our dilemmas in candid terms. You call your 1,000 material devices labor-saving machinery, yet you are forever busy. With the multiplying of your machinery, you go increasingly fatigued, anxious, nervous, dissatisfied. Whatever you have, you want more, and whenever you are, you want to go somewhere else. Your devices are neither time-saving nor soul-saving machinery. They are so many sharp spurs which urge you on to invent one more thing. So, with that, I invite Rhondalyn forward to share her reflections on the times in which we find ourselves and how we choose community over chaos.
First of all, I want to thank the program committee because they did such a good job. It's as if they read everything in my mind and I didn't have to do a thing. So I thank them for that. Reverend Gail is right. I, as many people, have been pondering many things, and so this is what I got from that. The last time that I had the honor of being with UUCO was October 2nd, 2022. I found the program, so I'm sure about that. My talk then was entitled Courage to Meet the Day, and truth be told, I could have just reused the title. Then I was here to share with you all some highlights from my Civil Rights in Oxford Town tours that were launched to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Meredith's integration of the University of Mississippi. The tours themselves memorialize the struggle and sacrifice Black Mississippians and their allies made in the quest towards freedom and equality during the civil rights struggle of the 1950s and 1960s. To tell the story of those courageous local people who fought various battles in the war against injustice that seems never to be won. I am at my core a modern Christian humanist. My worldview is informed by the teachings of Jesus, my respect for science and reason, and though it seems presently lacking, common sense. My belief in the value and equality of every human being, and the necessity of proper stewardship of all of creation, even the parts I am not so enamored with, including mosquitoes that came out early because it's been hot. And last but certainly not least, as a public historian, the lessons of history and the lessons that history alone can teach us are always at the forefront of my mind. Given this worldview, I, like people of faith and people of conscience, such as those of us gathered in this room, have been troubled of late. It's been over 60 years since the Civil Rights Movement and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And this August will mark the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Looming over these milestone celebrations, however, is a recurring threat. At the national level, it takes the form of the SAVE Act. Maybe you've heard of it. That is passed the House of Representatives last year and is slated for a vote in the Senate this year. On the state level, our House of Representatives, in session now in Jackson, introduced House Bill 1484, a bill to create the Mississippi Illegal Alien Certified Bounty Hunter Program. $1,000 a pop for every illegal you catch. That came out of DeSoto County, y'all. Like its predecessors, the Slave Catcher's Reward, or the bounties laid on indigenous scalps, this situation reminds us that history may not repeat exactly, but it sure does rhyme. I'm glad to inform you that House Representative H.R. Bill 1484 died last week. Maybe it was a bridge too far. But then in this season, what is too far when our norms are eroded? How did we get here? As some of you know, I have for the last 4 years been serving as an election worker at the College Hill precinct. I know because you see me there and I see you there every time we have an election. On November 5th, 2024, though it was usual for election, it was a bit special because it fell on what would have been my mother's 89th birthday. And it was a historically consequential election, as we now know. These dueling sentiments caused me to reminisce. I thought of my mother, who was not legally allowed to vote before age 30, who didn't routinely vote until the 1980s, and who cast her last vote with my help for Barack Obama in 2008. I had a 16-hour day and then dozed off shortly after returning home. I woke at 2:45 a.m. and before going back to sleep, checked on the returns. I got an unexpected outcome. My country had leaned as conservative as my precinct had. The latter was expected, but the former was not. I felt like I was in a twilight zone. I saw tumultuous times ahead, and now they are upon us. In times like these, what could I say to myself? What could I say to you? I've been trying to be more consistent with my time. I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I do try to do better every year. So I've been trying to be more consistent with my time of meditation and devotion in this new year. So I've read the scriptures of my faith and related secular texts to give me a context for this season we find ourselves in, and to try and root and ground me for the fight ahead of us. Because make no doubt about it, this is a fight. We are at war. I've been reading, not that you want to hear my reading list, but I'll tell you anyway. I've been reading On Tyranny by political scientist Timothy Snyder, Mediocre, Lord is the poster child, by writer Ijeoma Oluwe. The latter writings of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., including what Gail just read from and what I will quote later as well. And as a wild card, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning by Margarita Manns. What can I say? I crave order in this time of disorder, and my house needed some help. Hopefully, this reading list will make more sense to you when you hear the rest of my remarks. Times like these tend to leave me and us with more questions than answers. So I'll share two of those questions that I've been pondering with you and the insight I've gathered so far. The first question actually comes from a Christian scripture, one I often heard elders in my community during my adolescence partially quote, "Redeeming the times because the days are evil." I never understood what they meant then. This adage is only part B, as we would say, of a scripture. And it's Ephesians 5:15 through 16, which reads in the King James, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil." Now, if that's too, Old English for you, let me give you the amplified, up-to-date version of the verse, which I prefer more. For clarity, the amplified translation reads as, "Therefore, see that you walk carefully, living life with honor, purpose, and courage, shunning those who tolerate and enable evil, not as the unwise, but as wise, sensible, intelligent, discerning people, making the very most of your time on earth, recognizing and taking advantage of each opportunity and using it with wisdom and diligence, because the days are filled with evil." Now, I know some don't like the terms good and evil so much, so let me give you some synonyms. That's the teacher in me. I love words. So just instead of saying days are filled with evil, let's say some of these other words. The days are filled with corruption, destruction, hatefulness, divisiveness. They are injurious, maleficent. Can't you tell I really like words? However, these terms surely describe the chaotic times in which we now reside. So now that we have that clarified, my question remains, because they never told me this, how do you actually redeem the times? So let's talk about that for a minute. We are met every day, especially now, with a barrage of fallacies and falsehoods. As Ida B. Wells said, and even King said, bald-faced lies. Diversions and distractions, division and bitterness, hatred, sorrow, and sadness. To redeem the times, we must keep our eye on the prize and stand on truth. This is the key to redeeming the times. We must stand on truth. What do you mean about that? Glad you asked. Got an analogy for that. We have to be like a boxer. I'm not involved in blood sports, no MMA here, but I'm just saying. A boxer has to bob and weave, deflecting all kinds of blows, but keeping their focus on their opponent, right? And we have to do that. Because I know every morning, as sure as we get up and turn on any piece of media or look on our phones, there's something there that ticks you off. There's many things back to back to back. I don't know about you, but the first time in the first administration, 4 years ago, I stopped watching the news. It was just too much. Every time I turn around, something crazy happened. Some lie was being told. I found myself arguing at the device like it was gonna argue back with me. And so for my self-care, I had to shut it off. But now, the stakes are higher. We can't just shut it off. We can't just, oh, okay, I won't worry about that. The threat is right in our face. So what are we going to do? We're gonna be like this boxer. So that means, first of all, we have to actually know the truth, okay? I know that's hard nowadays because everybody's saying everything. And of course, there's a familiar scripture, John 8:32, that says, you know, the truth will set you free is the way people mostly read it. But there's one translation that says, you shall know the truth for yourself, and it'll make you free. As a former high school teacher, I had to say that a lot of times, not from scripture. It's like, you keep telling me what somebody else told you, or what you heard, or what you saw on TikTok, or what could you go find out for yourself, please? Don't come bringing that in here. It did not make sense when it came out of your mouth, but okay, I digress. I'm gonna come back out of the classroom. So, not only do we have to know the truth for ourselves, but we have to speak the truth. We can't be scared to proclaim it boldly, what we know to be true. The folks who are lying, they're not scared to be bold with their lies, falsehoods, and fallacies. So why are we, well, I don't think that's really right. You miss me with that, as the kids would say. You can say that. That's not going to help us. And lastly, don't just know the truth and speak the truth. Act on it. They're acting on the lies and fallacies. You have to be willing to act on the truth. Now, biblically, faith is supposed to be dead without works. And in the natural, we say it a little differently. So talk with no action means nothing. So we say you got to talk the talk and walk the walk. If you don't, nobody's paying attention to you because you haven't backed up what you believe with any form of action. Now, we don't have time to have a deep philosophical discussion on truth today, okay? Objective versus relative, public versus private, literal versus symbolic. We're not going to do that and so on. But we usually accept that truth is something that can be proven, okay? So, for example, flat earthers, I hope there are none in here. I don't mean to disrespect. The earth is round, okay? We theorized it for a long time, but around 60 or so years ago, we got to go up in space and look back at it, and it's round. We're now sure that it's round. So we must meet untruths with truth, and hatred and bigotry with love, radical love though, not that fake love, not that fair weather love that we like to do. Oh, I just love them. Stop lying. We must speak truth to power and genuine love. And I, for one, am still working on the last part. They keep telling us at the church house we're supposed to pray for them in leadership, and I've had some problems praying for our current leadership. So I'm just going to talk about me, not y'all. I'm not talking about y'all. So the second question is akin to the first, okay? Where do we go from here? Now, of course, Gail can be Vanna White and hold the book up again, but if you have not read King's last book, he wrote it in 1967, and it was published in 1968, the year he was assassinated. The full title of the book is Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? And that is the question that's before us today. We've been in chaos, okay? We've been there, this ain't new. And depending on who you ask about when the chaos began, some people would point out a decade ago, 2015, when somebody rode down a gold escalator. Some people would go much further back and say the whole century been a wash so far. The first 25 years, first quarter's been crazy in all kinds of measures, whether that's the pandemic, whether it's the school shootings, whether we could pick a day, okay? You could say right down, way back to 1787 when we put in the Constitution certain things that should have never been put in there, like that certain people were 3/5 of a person. So wherever you want to start this idea of chaos in the American history and tradition, I'll let you start that personally. But since we've been in this chaos since then, the question still remains, what are we going to pick? Now, technically, Gail already answered this question for everybody in the room. We pick community over the chaos. But I want to take us back a little bit. King wrote this book 2 years after he had been in the office when Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. And so he does a bit of reminiscing. So in the first chapter, King reminisces about being in the Oval Office with President Johnson and all the other hopeful people that had worked so hard to apply the pressure to make these laws happen. Johnson himself said, in part, and declared, "Today is a triumph for freedom, as huge as any victory that's ever been won on any battlefield. Today we strike away the last major shackle of fierce and ancient bonds." They thought the war was won, all but finished. 60 years later, we know that's not true. Now, history and us shouldn't judge them too harshly because, the same had been thought 100 years earlier. After the Civil War. Oh, we did that. That's all nice and done. Had a little tiny period of time called Reconstruction, put in a bunch of new laws, put in Civil Rights Acts. These were not the first Civil Rights Acts. They came in the 1860s, okay? In the 1870s. But, we've done that. It's all good. It makes you wonder why we keep finding ourselves back at the same spot. A little progress, but back at the same general spot. They forgot, and we have to remember that freedom is a constant struggle. So while it's disheartening, it should not be a surprise that we are back in a familiar place. Remember, history may not repeat exactly, but it surely rhymes. Even in 1967, King could see that the promise of the bills passed and lauded just a couple of years before were already breaking, were already going away. In his reflection, he reminds us that the absence of brutality and unregenerative evil is not the presence of justice. To stay murder is not the same as to ordain brotherhood. He goes on to say, the practical cost of change for the nation up to this point has been cheap. The limited reforms have been obtained at bargain rates. There are no expenses and no taxes are required for Negroes to share lunch counters, libraries, parks, hotels, and other facilities with whites. Even the psychological adjustment is far from formidable. But the unregenerate segregationist who has declared that democracy is not worth having if it involves equality. The segregationist goal is the total reversal of all reforms with reestablishment of naked oppression, and if need be, a native form of fascism. This is King talking in 1967. He ends by saying, or I end this part of the quote by saying, the fight is far from over because it is neither won, as some assert, nor lost, as the calamity-ridden declare. These words written almost 60 years ago are as timely today as they were then. Today we can choose to stand on truth and act, or we can let our society fail and fall. I know it might seem like I'm being hyperbolic, and the myth of American exceptionalism may have lulled us into thinking that this can't happen here. Though this is framed as a political, religious, or even economic battle, at its core it's a battle between good and evil, right and wrong. As a pastor recently said, they don't really care who or what you pray to, but they do care who you worship. And by worshiping, I mean who you render adoring reverence or regard to. They hope it's them. Prove them wrong. Finally, there's another scripture, and I'm going to paraphrase it. But it says, whatsoever is lovely, think on these things, right? Whatsoever is lovely, honest, just, think on these things. But don't just think on those things, act on those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhondalyn, for such a timely message, and it's extraordinary to know that his words were written 60 years ago, and we need them today. Our closing hymn will be number 169 in the gray hymnal, We Shall Overcome. After the hymn, we'll remain standing for our closing blessing. So number 169.
So I'll just do the last two bars.
And I will say, we don't say someday anymore, we say today.
Today.
We're not dreaming in the future, the time is now.
Excellent. Today.
I do believe.
Please remain standing for the releasing of the chalice flame and then our blessing. Help us to always be hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness nothing comes to birth, as without light nothing flowers. That's by May Sarton. With that, we'll release the flame. And we can join hands, or if you'd prefer to just put a hand on a shoulder across the rows where we are. Our closing words are, go in peace, believe in peace, create peace, be peace. We say them together. Go in peace, believe in peace, create peace, be peace. Blessed be.
And remember to take a sheet
Yeah.
and call Senator Wicker to tell him to support his position on Ukraine.